I've always wanted to try the Puppus S1 since I saw it, since my router is pretty far away from where I play VR, but I never had the chance to try it. And once I discovered that the Puppis S1 Lite came out, I decided to finally take the plunge and try it out. Now, if you don't know what the Puppis S1 or S1 Lite are, they are essentially little routers that you connect to your PC to allow for your Oculus Quest or other VR headsets to have a dedicated connection to your PC near your PC. Now let's go ahead and unbox this and see what comes with it. First things first, there is of course the Puppis Lite itself, and as we can see there's a few ports on the back. Let's set that aside for now. And under the first bit of cardboard, we have a couple cables. The first cable being an Ethernet cable that is going to go into the LAN port later. Then of course we have the power supply. Along with those, there is a little card, along with the instruction manual as well. Now let's go ahead and go over how you get this connected to a computer, then get a headset connected to it. The official way is of course to connect the power cable to the power port. Next we'll be taking the Ethernet cable that should be connected to your PC, and plugging it into the WAN port on the Puppis Lite. After that, we'll be taking the included Ethernet cable and connecting it to the LAN port on the Puppis, and then connecting it to the Ethernet port on your computer. After it's all connected, next we're going to want to install the Prism Xr desktop app. We can do that by going into your browser, typing in Prism Xr desktop app, and then going to the first link, which should say apps for desktop, going to the download section, and finding Prism Xr desktop, then either clicking on the image or link, and installing the app how you would install any other app. Afterwards, open the app and we'll follow the prompts to set up the router. Now with the app open, we'll hit the click to start button. Next, choose your country. In my case, it's the USA. Then hit the arrow. And after that, it should prompt you for a password. You really should add a password to this thing, as I don't think you want random people connecting to your internet. In my case, I'm going to set the password as testpass, hit the set button, then the arrow, and hit the Let's Stream button. After the router is set up, you would just connect your headset to the router just like you would any other network. Then theoretically you should have access to the internet and should be able to connect wirelessly to your computer. Also, apparently the Quest 3 doesn't let you record part of the UI when changing your Wi-Fi settings. Anyways, here's a little bit of footage of me immediately testing out one of my favorite VR games / experiences, that being the game Aircar. This was done using Airlink as the way I connected to my PC. Now my initial impression of this little device when actually using it was that of pure amazement. For the last few years I've been struggling to get back into VR, since I knew that every time I wanted to get into it, I was going to need to awkwardly connect my Oculus Link cable to my headset, and have it strewn across my room while I try to not tangle it up too much. Now with the Puppis, I'm able to almost flawlessly use my Quest 3 with my PC, and now I'm honestly thinking of playing normal non-VR games in bed. Why, you may ask? Well, because I decided to try playing Sonic X Shadow Generations as a test to see if it could handle it. And I did this using virtual desktop to connect to my PC this time, and not really to my surprise, I was also now able to play normal games in bed, since the performance was actually pretty good. While playing, I didn't notice the latency, and I was able to play the game just fine. And since it works so well, it means I no longer need to try and hold my Steam Deck above my head. Instead, I can just look straight up while holding my controller and resting if I decide to keep playing non-VR games with my VR headset. But not everything ran great all the time, and I'll tell you how I fixed that at the end of the next section. But before I get to my overall thoughts, let's go back and check out more of the Prism Xr app and the options it has. The main options the Puppis has is setting the mode as either Prism Pulse mode or Wi-Fi hotspot mode. From what I can tell, Prism Pulse mode mainly makes it so you can only access the 5 GHz mode to ensure you're not using a slower 2.4 GHz connection with your headset, and the Wi-Fi hotspot mode makes it so you can either use the 2.4 GHz or 5 GHz connections. Also, while testing Aircar getting in Wi-Fi mode on the 5 GHz connection, I didn't notice any difference from using the Prism Pulse mode. The next option is the Game Boost option, which supposedly optimizes performance. Prism Xr doesn't really go into detail on that, so you can probably just turn that on and leave it. Then you can choose to either connect to your router via Wi-Fi or your Ethernet cable. And the last thing you may want to pay attention to is the one-click scan. What this does is it looks at through a bunch of different settings or potential issues, and lets you know what you may want to update or fix to help with network issues. And I gotta say, if you do notice any issues like stuttering, you should run this check. As mentioned before, I had an issue a couple days after using the Puppis for the first time. That issue, from what I could tell, is that pretty much every 5G network near me was operating on pretty much the same Wi-Fi channel on the 5 GHz band. If you don't know what Wi-Fi channels are, they are essentially a small frequency range that a router transmits on, and if too many routers are using the same frequency too close to each other, they start interfering with each other, causing slowness and other issues. How did I figure out that was the issue? Well, one of the things that the scan option in the Prism Xr software does is it lets the Puppus scan what Wi-Fi band any router around you is using, shows them on a graph, and lets you choose which one the Puppus should be using. In my case, I chose range 161, since it was outside the range of the other networks, though I also could have chosen the 165 option. Once I did that, my issues seem to have mostly disappeared, or at least became mostly unnoticeable. Now with that all out of the way, what are my overall thoughts on the Puppus Lite? Well, to start, I am very impressed with how easy it was to set up. I honestly thought it was either going to take a lot longer or be harder to set up. I do have one annoyance with it that is very much just a me thing. That is when I'm connected to this thing, I can't connect to any of my network drives that are hosted on my server, since they're technically on a different router and therefore a different network altogether. But I sort of fixed that. How, you may ask? Well, I bought a second network card for my computer, since I was planning on getting one anyways, installed it, and now I have my computer connected to the rest of my internet via that, and have my Puppus connected to my motherboard's Ethernet port, so I can connect to my network drives, but my Quest can no longer connect to the internet while connected to the Puppus. But for 99% of people, this probably just won't be an issue, and I can always connect my headset to my main internet anyways, if it needs internet for something that isn't wireless streaming. Again, for most people, there should be no issues with internet connections if you are hosting a server on your home network. Otherwise, I don't really have any real issues with the Puppus Lite. I do wish it had the option of creating a network using USB ports instead of Ethernet ports, like with the original Puppus. The price also isn't that bad. I got it on sale for only about $40, and at full price it's $50, which isn't that much worse, and to me is a pretty small investment for making your VR experience a lot better. Also do want to mention, on their Amazon listing, it does mention a max Wi-Fi speed of up to 1200 megabits per second. The listing also says the Ethernet port maxes out at 1000 megabits per second, or 1 gigabit per second, so while you theoretically can use all that speed via Wi-Fi, you aren't going to be using all that speed for its intended purpose of connecting to your PC. Also, the Puppus does only come with a single Ethernet cable, but I don't really blame them for this, as they're most likely expecting you to already have an Ethernet cable connected to your PC, or if you're connecting via Wi-Fi, you don't really need the second one. Other than that, my final thoughts on the Puppus are that I think it's a good device, and was definitely a worthwhile purchase for myself. For the price, I think I would buy it again if either the one I bought were to break, or if I wanted one for on the go for some reason. But hey, what are your thoughts on the Puppus S1 Lite? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe.